I meant 5:30, guys. I apologize. I said 6. I meant 5:30. We have about 5 minutes before we're going to start. I am going to kindly request that for your name to please put your name in there. We shouldn't be using any abbreviations or anything of that kind. So if I see it, as long as we have a first initial and a last name, that's fine. But if we could please make sure that we know who is going to be chatting with us, if you'll have any questions, or unfortunately, I will take you out of the web town hall. Thank you. Hi, Ms. Crystal. Thank you. Hi, Ms. Christina. Ms. Darlene Diamond, you have your hand up. Did you want to write in the chat? Oh, yes, ma'am. You are in the right place. Ms. Cristolata, did you have a question? You have your hand up. Okay, from my clock, it is about 5:30. So I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. We really appreciate you taking time to be here. So just going over a little housekeeping rules. I know that right now, people are still going to be logging on. People are still going to be logging on. So just a few housekeeping rules. Panelists are the only ones that are going to be having a camera on that are going to be able to speak. So any of the attendees, if you have any questions, I'm going to kindly ask you to please put the questions in the Q&A section. That'll allow us to download any questions and then to answer them and send them back out. So if you put a question in the chat, I will kindly ask you to please put it in the Q&A portion. And if you could please give us time to answer those questions, because right now what we're going to do is just go over a presentation regarding the teacher incentive allotment. And as soon as they're ready, let's see, we have Mr. Chavez, Ms. Martinez, Ms. Trevino, Dr. Matkins, and Mr. Nestor currently on. I am waiting for one more person for Dr. Morales to log in. I just need to make sure she's not on here. Let's see. Okay, don't see her on here. Phil, did you want to wait for Dr. Morales? Yes. Okay. So we're gonna wait a couple more minutes so Dr. Morales can go ahead and log in. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna kindly ask for your name to be put on when we chat, so we know who we're talking with. If you can please make sure that it is your name, and if you have any questions, to type them in the Q&A portion of the Zoom section. On the chat, you can talk back and forth with us or the panelists, but if you have a specific question regarding anything that we're talking about this evening, please go ahead and put that in the chat. We will be collecting all the information from today, from any questions you have, gathering it, and then putting it together, and then sending it out to you all once we have that information. Again, I thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it.
Ms. Olga, how are you? Ms. Olga, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
I'm trying to do my background screen, but it says you have to allow me.
Okay, so let me. Sorry about that.
You're good.
I'm going to make everybody a co-host, so it should allow you to turn on your cameras.
Okay, let me try one more time. It's still not letting me.
Okay, now go ahead and try, sir. Good evening, Mr. Pina.
There it goes.
And then...
Ms. Olga, I do believe Dr. Morales is here now as well.
Okay, do I need to, let me move her over. Okay, I don't see her on the attendee list. Can you ask her where she's at, please? Yeah, she's not popping up for me. While Mr. Nestor is working on that, again, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping rules. I do notice that several people have joined in. So once Dr. Morales comes on, we will start our presentation. Again, thank you for being here. We know that everybody is probably hungry or something. I came home and fed my kids really quick. So again, thank you all for being here. We are going to be discussing the teacher incentive allotment. If you have any questions regarding anything that's going to be discussed this evening, we are kindly requesting that you type your question in the Q&A portion of the Zoom. If you just want to chat or do a shout out, you can go ahead and do that on the chat portion. But if you do put a question inside the chat portion, I will go ahead and message you and tell you to go ahead and put it in the Q&A. And I am asking that if you can put your name so we know who we are chatting with at the time, so that it's not just your phone number or it's not just an abbreviation. At least it has your full last name and possibly your first initial. Let's see. Let's see more on this. Okay, here she is. I found her. All right, I think we are now all set.
Olga, do you see the screen as one screen?
Yes, sir, we're good.
Fantastic. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Basically, we're here today to share with you the work that our staff and our task force and our steering committees for the teacher incentive allotment have been working on since last spring, actually. What we come to today is House Bill 3 is a broad-based school finance bill that was passed by the 86th legislature in 2019. This bill provides, among other things, money for Texas classrooms, reading academies, training for teachers in grades kindergarten through 6, mandates in the development of board goals for 3rd grade reading, which we put in place several years ago with our Lone Star governance goals, as well as college, career, and military readiness indicators for our LSG. One of the major ways compensation is addressed is through the teacher incentive allotment. Today, I want to share with you our intended learning outcomes. We're going to review how the teacher incentive allotment aligns to our board superintendent goals and our Vision 2020, our guiding principles, our Lone Star governance and systems of great schools components, as well as our school partners. We're going to talk about why are we selected to do the teacher incentive allotment. And we're going to talk about the process for the teacher incentive allotment. We're also going to discuss how we aligned our allotment, our teacher incentive allotment, to our current teacher evaluation system, the TTESS. We're going to discuss how do we address the calibration and the scoring of the TTESS, as well as the distribution of funds across the board, and timelines for our next steps. And finally, I also want to share with you the TIA task force. Those individuals comprised of teachers, association members, administrators, central office staff, and we are very proud of the work they've done. Now, I do want to say, this is the first draft that we're sharing with teachers. As Ms. McCool said, we are wanting to get some feedback from teachers. And later on in the presentation, we will discuss the initial teacher survey that we're going to send out, and it's been posted, and Mr. Nestor will direct you to that survey that we want all, if we can get 100% of all teachers to respond, we would greatly appreciate that. Now, I want to introduce our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Eduardo Hernandez.
My apologies, I was muted. So good evening, everybody. First of all, let me thank you first and foremost for being here. I do know it is about 5:30, 5:40. Most of you are probably moving on to home or maybe even driving home. So I know you're very busy these days. I don't know about you, but this week coming back, there's a lot going on. But this is definitely a conversation that is not only important, but I think that really continues to bring value to the future of the work that we're doing in Edgewood collectively as a school system. But this meeting is the first of many conversations, how we can better inform you and better serve you. The teacher incentive allotment directly aligns to our board superintendent goals that's usually highlighted here, because what it does is that not only does it, one, bring to prominence, continue to bring to prominence the fact that we're focused on student success, but it also, in a very big way, as you will come to find out, it focuses on employee performance, and it does so in a manner that would be sustainable for the outcomes that as teachers, teachers always have the greatest influence on students, but for those teachers that would reach a level of student outcome or expectation, there is a certain level of financial incentive in terms of this work. And so Goal 4 supports the work of student success in a very meaningful and real way. And then, of course, it also allows us to support the need for us to be good, excellent stewards of the finances that we are given from the state, from our local property owners, and of course, just our greater city as a whole. So again, this conversation centers around these three goals around the board superintendent goals. If you go to the next slide. As you probably heard me discuss over the last few years now, Vision 2025 has always been about how do we continue to perform at high quality levels and how do we move students into seats at high quality schools. You've heard me mention things like system of great schools and how we provide more innovation and opportunity for our parents to shop around for the best schools possible. Well, the teacher incentive allotment is not something new in the sense of that it won't support the work that we're doing in terms of Vision 2025. This work will continue to support the #1 outcome, which is to graduate all students on time. We will do it in following our core values, being professional, being accountable, communicating early and often. That's what today's first conversation is about. But also, more importantly, being inclusive of many voices, both teachers, both central office, both friends at the teacher group, individuals out in our greater community, and really continuing to define what is a high performing school, what is a high quality teacher, which is the teacher is the center point of everything that we do. And then how do we continue to support teachers in the classroom? And so we can keep going, Mr. Chavez. Again, this work continues to support that work. And then, of course, it also supports the work that I, as the superintendent, do directly with our board of trustees. Our board of trustees has adopted the model of Lone Star governance and how we work towards a continuous improvement model that focuses on improving student outcomes. So the work of the board is in support of high quality student outcomes, and that is done by setting a vision, by holding the superintendent accountable first, by the superintendent also holding everyone that works with the superintendent accountable as well, by creating a structure that supports the goals, the stated goals of the district, and the redefinition of goals. I say that intentionally because if the last year has taught us anything, It's taught us a couple of things. I know there's principals on this call, so I'm also, this is probably you're gonna relate to maybe some of our conversations we've been having this week. What the pandemic and what last week, it's most people, I think they're calling it the snowpocalypse. I think that's what it's come to be called, is that it's really created the need for us to really reevaluate our structures. How do we support the work that we've stated is important, which is to support students in our schools? And for those of us in leadership positions, how do we first reassess our personal relationships and the relationships of the people that we serve? And so structure becomes a huge part. And then the next one being advocacy and making sure that as leaders of the school district, whether you are a central office leader, superintendent, principal, coach, whatever your role is, teacher, you continue to advocate for, first and foremost, the outcomes that are related around students, but also your needs as teachers in the classroom. And then finally, that we have a level of unity as much as we can, are centered around goals and the focus of that work. And so today, this conversation around teacher incentive allotment is how do we bring continued support to you in somewhat of from a financial point of view. So you're going to hear a little bit more about that in a little bit. Mr. Chavez? So you heard me talk earlier about the system of great school, which is our theory of action. And what that does is that theory supports the empowerment of educators, the support of educators, and the focus on central office being serving and supporting schools and everyone who exists or lives in schools. How do we do that? We do that through four different levers. Through managing school performance, which basically means defining clearly what is expected and how metrics are evaluated and created. Expanding options, that's everything we're doing right now with our innovation programming. Improving access to options. Every child in this district should have access to a high quality teacher. They should also have access to a high quality principal. And our parents and our students should have access to, again, schools that are built around a level of autonomy that creates leaders that have a better sense of what the purpose of the school is, whether you're serving in a school that is a girls leadership school, a STEAM innovation school, fine arts. So I'm hoping this is starting to click together, the different innovation zones that we're developing in the school. But regardless of what those zones are, here we go. Thank you, Mr. Chavez, right on cue there. All these zones, all this work is negligible if the focus of that work is not around supporting teachers and communicating for teachers clearly where this work goes. And so right now, if I'll repeat it, it's always good to repeat. We're continuing to develop the STEAM Innovation Zone, our Performing Arts Innovation Zone. We've had and will continue to have a high quality early childhood zone. Our leadership zone these are our two gendered schools. It's Las Palmas Leadership School for Girls, and now coming on board, Cisneros Leadership School for Girls. And then our public service zone, and these are our schools around Memorial, schools like Gus Garcia and the following elementary school. So TIA supports this work too. And so thank you, Mr. Chavez, again. So how do all these pieces come together? We can start clicking, Mr. Chavez. You first have your board superintendent goals. You have your Lone Star governance goals, which helps the superintendent govern with the board of trustees. The system of great schools that builds options in our school systems. Partnership schools, for example, Pre-K for SA at Gardendale, or Friends of P-TECH at Brentwood Middle School, or maybe this week, Winston Elementary School, partnering up with Texas A&M, the Burleson School, partnering up with Texas A&M as well. And now a big pinnacle piece is the teacher incentive allotment and how we use that ability that the state has been giving us to reward teachers who reach their student outcomes. And so you're going to hear more about that, but that brings my part to an end. But again, teachers, I will tell you as the superintendent, my heart is fully committed to this work. I intend to support this work out to its natural consequence, or in other words, to its natural, where we believe it will end up next year and years to come. So again, this is the first of many conversations. And I see we've got over 200 folks on today. So I hope that you will talk to other teachers and ask them to be at the next meeting, or I'm sure we can share this meeting with them as well. But again, this is the first of many conversations, and I look forward to this conversation. And if you need a one-on-one, I'm gonna put it out there. Remember, I have my Let's Talk with Dr. H app that is available for all employees, and you can sign up and visit with me if you're willing to get up early, and we can discuss this or any other matter. So Mr. Chavez, back to you at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Hernandez, for piecing together the why, so to speak, and how it connects to all the initiatives that you have brought into the district over the past 3 years. Now, why now with the teacher incentive allotment? I want to talk about the benefits of why EISD chose to explore this option now. On the screen, you see in Region 20, those individuals who have approved teacher incentive allotment plans, and these are approved by TEA, and more importantly, Texas Tech University serves as the consultants who actually go in and look at the details in terms of the metrics, the statistics of the particular programs that we decide to utilize. As you can see here, we have several charter schools and a few local ISDs, San Antonio ISD and Somerset ISD. As you'll learn about the teacher incentive allotment, this is a really good program that awards teachers and allows us to do wonderful retention of current teachers, as well as recruitment. And so if we have these individuals who have been approved, they are able to offer this option to their teachers. Now, currently, if you look at the very bottom of that piece, we have letters of intent. As you can see, Edgewood ISD is there. So these are the individuals who have letters of intent to apply for the teacher incentive allotment. And our due date, by the way, is going to be on April 15th. So our goal is to, with this first blush that we're sharing with you, to gather feedback. And so that way we can now be able to share what this plan looks like so that we are as competitive. And I believe, as you see in this presentation, more competitive in the salaries that we'll be able to, our incentives we will be able to award to teachers. So the goals for the teacher incentive allotment are twofold. One, as I said previously, to retain our teachers in Edgewood ISD, to ensure that teachers have a realistic path to a competitive salary. And normally some of the pathways are to go into administration or counseling, and in some cases, some coaching positions. But in order to retain teachers in the classroom and pay them for the hard work that they put into teaching our students of Edgewood ISD, this now becomes a path to a competitive salary. The second reason is for recruitment, to attract and keep effective educators in the classroom and incentivize teaching at some of our challenge campuses. So why should we go forward with this? Dr. Hernandez went over the board superintendent goals, and one of the things that we looked at in terms of increased student achievement, increase the incentive allotment for quality teachers, that will increase our student achievement, goal 1. Also, remain competitive in a tight labor market, goal 4. Increase retention of the most effective teachers, also goal 4. Increase equity of access to most effective teachers, aligning to our goal 1. Opportunity to strengthen our current evaluation system such that we have parity and inter-rater reliability of our evaluation system, also pointing to goal 4, as well as supporting teacher growth in a positive manner with a substantial incentive at the end, also goal 4. And finally, use state dollars to increase teacher salaries, which addresses both goals 4 and goal 5. At this point, I'd like to introduce our Chief of Human Resources, Ms. Cynthia Trevino.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Good evening, Edgewood family. This is a great opportunity that I want to go ahead and expand on a little bit more. Mr. Chavez and Dr. Hernandez, thank you for getting this segue going. So what are the benefits of the teacher incentive allotment, as we were discussing with our committee? So TA is now allowing districts to receive additional funding, anywhere from $3,000 to $32,000 per year for every designated teacher they employ. So this is additional funding that will be allotted to our district to provide the incentive for our teachers. The other benefit that we will have is districts will receive greater funding for designated teachers who work on rural or high needs campuses. At Edgewood, as Mr. Chavez mentioned, we have some high need campuses. So Edgewood would be one of the districts that will be receiving greater funding to be able to incentivize our teachers based on the 3 levels that they will be designated. The other benefit that we have is the designations will remain on a teacher certification for 5 years. So these designations will travel with teachers. If they are transferred between districts, the designation will stay with them and they will be shown in their certification. So as we go out and recruit or retain our teachers, we will be making sure that the designations are identified so that we can make sure that we're compensating our teachers accordingly. So there are 3 levels that we will be discussing here with our teacher incentive allotment. As you can see here, we have a recognized, an exemplary, and a master's. So the recognized, we have the top 33% in the state. So if you are in a recognized category, you are considered to be ranked in the top 33% of the state. To be recognized, the district is allowing most districts anywhere from $3,000 to $9,000. Well, Edgewood, for the recognized teachers, the money that Edgewood is getting is $7,300 to $8,470 that will be added to the teachers that are considered recognized. So as you can see the disparity, it's anywhere from $3,000 to $9,000. Our teachers could be receiving anywhere from $7,300 to $8,400, which is a huge, huge impact for our teachers. At the exemplary status, you would be in the top 20% in the state. The money that is allocated for the districts is anywhere from $6,000 to $18,000. But in Edgewood, an exemplary teacher would be receiving anywhere from $14,700 to $17,000 in that category. So it's a huge gap there that you can see. It's a big, big, big incentive for our teachers. And this is a big opportunity for us to be able to retain our teachers and keep them here and compensate them for the great work that they're doing in the classroom. Next level is our master's level. This will be the top 5% in the state. As you can see there, again, the state is granting anywhere from $12,000 to $32,000. So as a master teacher in the classroom, the teachers would be receiving in Edgewood an additional $26,500 to $30,200. Huge, huge incentive for our teachers, so we can make sure that we are incentivizing them for the great work that they're doing in the classroom. So again, these are the 3 categories. It is a national board certification. These designations, again, will be added to the teacher's aspect certification, and they will be valid for up to 5 years. So just wanted to make sure that we discuss this, make sure that we recognize the 3 levels. We recognize the money that is being allocated to us once we apply for this grant and hopefully get approved. You can see the big disparity in the dollar amount that our teachers will be receiving. So it's just a great opportunity for us and hoping to gain this opportunity for our teachers.
I also want to point out that, as Ms. Trevino mentioned earlier, that national board certification automatically qualifies you for the recognized designation. So that's really important to note. Thank you, Ms. Trevino. Now we have Mr. Nestor talking about our partnership and the designation system.
All right, so now that they have all gotten super excited about a little bit of the teacher incentive allotment, and you see the possibility of how much money an educator could possibly earn, I get to talk to you a little bit about the process of how the system has been developed thus far and what will happen moving forward. And then a few of my colleagues will actually get into the nuts and bolts of the components. So when it comes to the system itself, yes, as Mr. Chavez mentioned earlier, we do have the Texas Education Agency as well as Texas Tech working together. The TEA will be looking at the system itself, which we will get into in a little bit to let you know more about it. But then once we actually start to collect data, The data will be sent into the Texas Tech University so that they can validate the assessment information that we send to them. So we're going to craft this plan together. We're going to compile our thinking into an application that is actually due in April. In that application, we're going to delineate exactly how we'll address the state's requirement for valid and reliable teacher observation and the use of growth measures. And we're also going to spell out the district's direction, whether we want to include any additional measures. The state wants us to be successful, and they want to help us actualize their goal for student and teacher growth, thus leading to teacher retention and teacher recruitment. Many determinations will have to be made. A major determination revolves around how we're even going to roll this out in the district. We are committed here in Edgewood to the goal of putting all teachers on the path to earn a TIA designation. However, in this process, we may see a phased-in approach, and we're going to get into that a little bit more in a little bit. But we still have quite a few questions to answer, and we're going to need your feedback on. Answering these questions and others will help us create our designation system that to be something that we will do together and in the months and the years ahead as we continue to adjust. All right, Mr. Chavez. What we do want you to know that even though we do have these student growth components as well as the teacher evaluation observation components that would be included in there, and we're giving teachers a designation, we are not talking about using evaluations or a designation or the lack of a designation as a gotcha. It's not meant to punish. This is not something about maintaining the status quo or living in this environment where everybody gets a gold star. And we're certainly not participating in a compliance exercise, because this has been an awful lot of work and will continue to be an awful lot of work to maintain. What we are talking about that is different in this approach is we're working towards creating a culture of feedback that is positive on each and every single campus. And we are also talking about using data to support personnel decisions on each and every campus. So moving into the planning stages, some things that have already happened. So this is stuff that has, for the most part, already happened. So we started attending informational meetings back in January. TEA went to various regions and various different meetings, and we were able to participate in some of those. And then moving forward beyond different senior leadership team conversations in that spring semester, in August, we developed a committee, a steering committee, and then we partnered up with Best in Class to provide some training and some guidance, because they've been working with the teacher incentive allotment across the state already to support us in developing out what our system is and answering really important questions and giving us some solid guidance on some things that have been done elsewhere that would be very useful to us. So we had various meetings from September to October and December, and we even had subcommittee meetings. There was just lots and lots of meetings and lots of decisions in order to draft this system out. And then, of course, now moving into where we're at right now is we're going to present this to principals. Actually, we've already presented it to principals and now to the entire staff, and starting to receive feedback so we can make adjustments. All right, we do need you to know that there are state requirements. We don't just get to develop any type of system we want. There are specific TEA requirements. The TEA has identified a percent of expected teachers at each designation level. To earn the recognized designation, the teacher effectiveness must be in the top 33% of the state, not of the district, not of the campus, of the state. An exemplary designation equates to the top 20%, again, of the state. And lastly, the master teacher designation reflects the top 5% of the state. Once a teacher earns this designation, very important, remember those big dollar signs that Mr. Trevino was throwing out earlier. Once a teacher earns this designation, it is added to their SBEC certification and is valid for 5, count them, 5 years. That means a teacher will continue to earn this incentive pay for the full 5 years. Now, a word of caution, every single district has a different plan and a different compensation plan that would go along with that. So if you earn it here and you move to a different district, then you would fall underneath whatever their compensation plan is, as well as the amount of the payout, which, as you saw earlier, likely wouldn't be as much. We're going to be one of the higher payouts that you're going to find due to our student demographics. All right. So we do have two different roles. So it's important to note the different roles between the district and the state. So the district's role is to develop and implement the designation system. So we've drafted this system and we would be implementing it next year. The state's role is to approve the systems based on their validity and reliability. Those of you who have gone to your master's or your doctoral level statistics class, those should be really big words that you remember, and which is why we have Texas Tech working on specifically on that validity and reliability of the system. So how does the district take advantage of these additional funds? The district must allow for strict guidelines for the development of the designation system using these parameters defined by TEA and submit that application for approval. TEA then determines if the district plans meets that outlined criteria. So I mentioned before the timeline that had already passed us, the things that have already happened. Well, moving forward, we're going to be getting feedback from all of you. We're going to have a really great website. I posted in the comments earlier. It is already live. If you go to the employee webpage, you will be able to see it there. On that page, there are already videos posted, some created by us, some created by Texas Education Agency to give you more and more information on the teacher incentive allotment. We will post tomorrow tonight's presentation, the video, as well as the PowerPoint, as well as we have a handbook that explains in detail the information that is in the PowerPoint. There will be a link to a survey for you to complete to provide feedback, as well as an email address just to ask questions. And we will do our best to get back to you in a very timely fashion on those questions. So moving forward, we're getting your feedback, but then in April, we're going to submit those applications, and then the districts identify highly effective teachers using the statewide standards to submit evidence of effectiveness. And then, of course, the TEA and Texas Tech University review those applications along with their evidence and approve the designation systems. Then, of course, once they approve all of that, the teacher officially assigns the designation to those teachers, and the state places those designations on their SPEC certificates. And then, of course, after that, the district receives the funds for disbursement based on the compensation plan. And I do believe at this point, I'm going to pass it off to my illustrious colleague, Ms. Dominguez, to get into some nuts and bolts on the components that will be a part of our system.
Good evening, Edgewood family. I'm so excited to be sharing this with you this evening. So I want to talk a little bit about how teachers can earn this designation and what that might look like for Edgewood ISD. As Mr. Nestor mentioned, this is our draft proposal. So we're looking for your feedback, and we're continuing to refine this proposal as we work through the process. So first off, our teacher incentive allotment will align to the current evaluation system. So there will be two components to this. The first being teacher observation, which will be based on TTESS. And then the district application will show evidence of validity and reliability. So later in the presentation, you'll hear about some of the training around calibration that we'll be working through over the next few months to make sure that those evaluations are very valid and objective for our teachers. The second thing we'll be looking at is student performance and how our student performance measures are also showing growth and success with whether it be state assessments or local assessments that we'll be administering as a collective group. And then we can also consider other things such as the mentoring of teachers, student surveys, and professional responsibilities rubrics. So let me dive a little bit deeper into what our current draft shows. So our phase-in process is that in 21-22, we're going to start with our math and reading teachers. And so I'll go a little deeper in those. And then 22-23 will phase in all other teachers, which are our non-math and reading teachers. So the subjects we're looking at specifically for next year's cohort will be pre-K through kinder, or pre-K looking at reading and math, K3 reading and math, 4-8 reading and math, and 9 through 12 reading and math. And so next to that, you'll see the assessment that we'll be looking around to determine that student growth or student achievement factor. Once we move into adding in our teachers that are not math or not reading teachers, we'll begin looking at our student learning outcomes a little bit deeper. So what does this look like for a pre-kindergarten teacher? So 50% of the score will come from your TTESS evaluation. 30% would come from the student growth component on Circle or Gold, depending on what your campus administers. 10% would come from the student growth component, which is school-wide STAAR. And then 10% would come from a professional responsibilities rubric, which has been drafted by the TIA committee currently. Teachers in grades K to 3, reading and math for year 1. Again, 50% will come from the TTESS evaluation. 30% will come from NCLAS growth for reading and MAP growth for math. So we will be introducing a new assessment next year that will replace MSTAAR, ESTAAR, and TIMI, and that will be the MAP assessment. We're currently in that process right now. And then 10% will be the student growth component for school-wide STAAR outcomes, and then 10% on the professional responsibilities rubric. Teachers in grades 4 to 8, reading and math, again, 50% on the TTESS evaluation, 30% for MAP, math and reading, 10% on the school-wide STAAR, and then 10% on professional responsibilities rubric. Our teachers in grade 9 will be looking at potentially PSAT reading and math. However, in our trial runs, looking at data, thanks to Dr. Morales, we're also kind of trying to check and vet what resources we use. We've come across some issues with PSAT, so we're also exploring some other assessments that would probably give us a better measure of growth. So that may change based on us digging in a little bit deeper. And then we'll look at 50% will come from the evaluation again, 30% from the student growth component. And if that's not PSAT, we'll have something that will replace that. And then 10% on school-wide STAAR, 10% on a professional responsibilities rubric. In grades 10 through 11, again, 50% on TTESS and 30% on a student growth component. 10% on the student growth component for school-wide STAAR, and then 10% from professional responsibilities rubric. And then finally, grade 12, right now we're looking at SAT, but again, as I mentioned earlier, this may not be the best fit simply because it's hard to demonstrate growth going from PSAT to SAT. And Dr. Morales has run some mock trials with that so that we can determine what's going to be the best fit for EDGEWOD ISD. And then 10% for student growth component with school-wide STAAR and 10% from a professional responsibilities rubric. And then finally, once we get to year 2, our K to 18 plus non-STAAR areas, we'll be looking at 50% educator evaluation, which is your TTESS, 20% on the school-wide STAAR, 10% on student learning outcomes, and then 20% on the professional responsibilities rubric. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Madkins, who's going to talk a little bit more about our calibration process.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Good evening, everyone. As previously stated, 50% of the TIA instrument will come from the TTESS evaluation component. To qualify for the allotment, we must ensure that TTESS evaluation scores are reliable and valid across the district. To do so, we've partnered with Region 20 Educational Service Center to develop a TTESS calibration plan that will involve all district TTESS appraisers, from principals, assistant principals, and district level appraisers, that will start in April of 2021, that will extend through the following school year into June 2022. The calibration plan includes 3 components. Component 1, training series on the knowledge and systems of the evaluation t-test tool itself. Component 2 is the rater accuracy and scoring calibration via campus walkthroughs and student data assessments. And we have component 3, ongoing calibration and collaboration observations conducted throughout the school year. T-test scores will be weighted according to the 4 domains listed here on the slide, in which domain 2, instruction, and domain 3, learning environment, will be weighted at 40% each, and domains 1 and 4, planning and professional practices and responsibilities, will be scored at 10% each. And so at this time, I'd like to pass the mic over to Dr. Morales, who is going to discuss how the t-test scoring will be changed into a scoring tool to see which teachers are rated at which level.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Matkins. So the t-test domains that Dr. Matkins just presented have a total of 16 dimensions that fall under the 4 domains, the 4 t-test domains. The domain scores are the average of the dimensions within the domain. Those average scores, so if you'll take a look at the chart, the little table that's there, those average scores that you see in column 2, they then are going to be multiplied by the weight that was shared earlier. And so that's in column 3. And so when they're multiplied by the weight, each one will then have their own total score, which you'd see in that last column. The 4 total scores are then going to be combined, and like in this example, will total to an overall t-test score of a 3.63. So that's how we're going to obtain the score for t-test. And we also have a video for you all that explains a little bit more about the t-test scoring and how each domain and the dimensions are scored as well. So that's going to be coming pretty soon if it's not already up and running. And so I'll now go to the next slide, please. And we'll go over the growth calculation. So this is another piece of that overall TIA score. So again, as previously mentioned, there are 2 parts to the growth calculation. There's a student growth and a school-wide growth. The student growth measures growth for pre-K through 12th grade at this time for students in both reading and math. That's all we're going to look at is those content areas, because those are the ones that are tested or that are looked at and are screened for every year. So we'll look at reading and math. In pre-K through 8th grade, though, the students will be assessed at the beginning of the year, which will be in the fall, and then again at the end of the year, which will be in the spring. However, for high school students, we'll be looking at the prior year administration, just like Ms. Dominguez was sharing earlier. If we end up staying with the PSAT or SAT, it would be from a prior year administration, and then looking at the current year administration of that testing instrument. But if you take a look here at that chart right below, you'll see an example of a self-contained classroom teacher's calculation. So for example, if a student meets their growth gain or target, then they will be counted in the numerator. So in this case, that's 15 for reading out of 23 total number of students. So now we'll look at math, and here there's 17 students that met their growth gain at the end of the year out of a total of 22 students. We'll then combine the reading and math together, and so we'll end up getting the 32 that ended up meeting growth out of the 45, which when we calculate that, it ends up being 71% of the students in this teacher's classroom that met growth. Now looking at that school-wide growth, that component over here to your right, we're going to be using the campus's domain 2 Part A academic growth scaled score that's provided to us by TEA. And so we'll then be taking that score and translating it to a 5-point scale just to align to the t-test, because they're a 5-point scale as well. And so in this case, for example, this campus received a TEA scaled score, Part A, of a 61. So that scaled score, when we translate it to a composite score, a 5-point scale score, it will end up being a 3.27. And we'll have more information on how those scores are translated in the field guide as well. You'll end up finding that information. So now we'll move down to the professional responsibility scoring, which is that last 10% of the overall TIA score. And this one's similar to the T-TESS, except that there's only 3 domains in this professional responsibility scoring with 9 dimensions. And they have that same column 2 where they'll be getting a score, an average score of their dimensions. But in this case, they're equally weighted, each one of those domains. So again, we'll follow that same process where we'll be multiplying the score to the weight and then receive a total score. And so when we add those together, again, at that bottom corner, you'll end up seeing an overall professional responsibility score of a 3.45. Okay, so that's my bit on how we'll be calculating the scoring for each of those 4 areas. And I'll now pass it on to our next partner, which I believe is Ms. Mirna Martinez.
Thank you, Dr. Morales.
You're welcome.
So, very quickly, I want to reiterate, I know there were some people that were running a little bit late, a little bit of confusion with our links. I apologize for that. But Ms. Trevino mentioned earlier that at Edgewood ISD, you have the opportunity of earning between $7,300 and $30,200 for getting one of the designations. What I wanted to mention as well is that the exact amounts are based on state formulas for each campus in the state. That's why you see that such a big range for the amounts that we are able to earn. Here in the slide, what you see is that TA has provided guidelines about how the teacher incentive allotment funds should be dispersed. At minimum, 90% of the funds must be used for teacher compensation on the campus where the designated teacher works, with 10% of the funds to be retained by the district. Mr. Chavez? Thank you, sir. In future years, we're progressively going to roll out a plan with the goal to have all the ISD or an EISD proposal that includes a different distribution plan to not only compensate specific teachers who earn the designation, but also to compensate teachers who are unable to earn the designation. This is really important to the district because we want to acknowledge that it truly takes everyone's effort to educate our students. So of the 10% that the district would retain, the plan is to reallocate 5% of those funds to compensate non-eligible personnel assigned to the campus. So what does that mean? This could include paraprofessionals and individuals in teacher positions who are not coded as classroom teachers. So again, we know those staff members, every staff member on the campus plays a crucial role to our student success. Okay, I'm going to turn it over back to Mr. Nestor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Martinez. So back to everybody's favorite part, which is our timeline. So we talked a little bit about moving forward as far as the whole process, but to get even more specific and granular with the dates, we see that the application opened up for us to submit a letter of intent in November, and then officially our application will be due on April 15th. And so that means we have from now until April 15th to convert this from draft system to final system that we're going to send. But do remember, if TEA has feedback, they will give us an opportunity to edit our system. And then next year, once they approve it, so we should find out in the summer if they've approved at least initially our system and our plan, and then we implement next year. At the end of next year, we take all of the data that we've collected, we send it to TEA and to Texas Tech, and then they go through their validation process. Once they go through their entire validation process, they then get back to us. I mean, we have to do that submission by November of 22, and then by April of 23, notification of final designations and annual allotment of funds based on the winter class roster would happen. And then, of course, in September of 2023, they would issue the final payout and designations from teachers from year one, which would be next year. So what do our actual next steps look like? So getting even a little more soon is we're going to start compiling feedback. I did double check and the link is live. So if you go to the employee page, you will be able to scroll down and see a link to the teacher incentive allotment website. On that website, you can already find tonight's PowerPoint, you can find the field guide, and then you can find the survey. Survey is very important. We want everybody to complete that survey so that we can compile as much data as quickly as possible so that we can start on the revisions that our stakeholders are proposing. In fact, we have our first meeting with our steering committee on Thursday. We're already going to start working with whatever data that we already have and a few things that we know that we need to already dive into. And so then we're going to, after we get all of that, we're going to come back and we're going to present to you guys again. And so after we present to you guys again, and then we submit to TEA, as you heard from Dr. Madkin's group, that there's already a plan in place and working with Region 20 to conduct intensive TTESS calibration training with our campus administrators. And then of course, we potentially are talking about some new assessments. And so we're going to have to get those on board and provide professional learning to all of our staff members and ensure that those are ready to go and maybe even do some piloting of those assessments. So those are some really immediate next steps that are coming up very soon. And if you move to the next slide, you can actually see a direct link to our TIA website. So it's just the regular EISD.net. Mr. Chavez, if you can go to the next slide. EISD.net/TIA, or you can find it on the website underneath the employee tab. There's also that link there, as I mentioned, to the survey that we need your help. Please help us by filling out this survey. And this PowerPoint presentation is already posted on the website along with the field guide.
I'd like to take this time to thank everyone who presented tonight. And we're going to go ahead and look at what our key takeaways are from tonight's presentation. One, we want to make sure that we understand that this is a local designation system designed for Edgewood that allows us to designate teachers as recognized, exemplary, or masters. The second takeaway is that there's additional funding for districts for every employee who is designated as a recognized, exemplary, or master teacher. Next, the idea that our district, Edgewood ISD, receives greater funding for designated teachers at high needs campuses. Ms. Trevino shared some ranges for our district, and those are ranges for the districts. And as we go to individual campuses, they fall within that particular range. Finally, the next piece is that at least 90% of the teacher incentive allotments funds must be used on the compensation on the campus where the designated teacher works. And finally, Mr. Nestor went over the timeline for TEA and the Texas Tech partnership to approve our local designation system. And that deadline is April 15th for us to submit. And as you saw earlier, we'll hear after that. Finally, I want to take this time to thank the members of the task force who spent time analyzing and determining the future of the teacher incentive allotment for Edgewood ISD. Without their commitment and your input, we wouldn't be on a trajectory to improving teaching and learning at scale for staff and students across the district. And I say your input because Mr. Nestor shared with you that all this information is on the TIA website, that designation shown previously. And we also have a teacher incentive allotment survey for you to fill out. And again, we would like to get 100% response on our survey. So at this point, we went through all of our intended learning outcomes, went to the board superintendent goals as Dr. Hernandez covered Division 2020, guiding principles. how LSG, our Lone Star Governance, System of Great Schools, and our partners work together to develop this particular incentive allotment for our teachers. We gave them an explanation as to why we're doing this in terms of retention and recruitment of our teachers, of quality teachers. We discussed the process that we're following for the application and how our application for the TIA aligns to our current teacher evaluation system. Dr. Morales also spent some time on how the calibration and scoring will be effected or implemented as we look at these particular scores and putting them all on an easy to understand 5-point scale. Ms. Martinez also then discussed the distribution of funds, and Mr. Nestor gave timelines and next steps. And of course, thank you to everyone who has worked on the TIA task force and for your input on your surveys and feedback. Again, I'd like to thank you that EISD is committed to building the TIA system together. In that vein, we have developed that initial survey to get your feedback, and we hope you take time to give us your input on several very important concepts as we begin the work. And I want to close that for every child, success in life, Edgewood proud. Thank you all very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez, and thank you to each and every one of you all that attended the meeting today. Again, if you have any questions still, please go ahead and type them in the Q&A. I'm going to leave it open for about another few minutes. So if you have any questions, definitely please put it in there. Ms. Cervantes, I see that you're asking where the survey is at. Let's see. I know I saw one of the surveys here.
If you go to the TIA website, it is linked on the TIA website. And I put the web address in the chat, as well as if you just go to the school district homepage, click on employees at the top, it's right there.
Perfect. Thank you. Again, if y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. If by any chance you don't get to put it in the chat while we are off and you think about something, please go ahead and reach out to myself or Mr. Chavez, and we can add your question to the Q&A section. Again, thank you all very much for being here today. We really appreciate each and every one of you. I don't have any music this time because last time I played music, I couldn't upload the video because it said I was like doing illegal music stuff. So I couldn't play music for you all today. Sorry, guys. No, I want to play some music. Let's see. I'll just cut it off. Let's see. Let's see. I'll do some Fleetwood Mac. That's always a good. That's always a good little easy one.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. Good job, guys. Very good job. Thank you.
I know, Kova, I need a skateboard and some. Oh, I don't think you want me riding a skateboard, though, Kova. I may break something.
Somebody's asking if there's a deadline for the survey.
Say that again?
Is there a deadline for the survey?
Oh, is there a deadline, Nestor, for the survey?
And I'm looking at my calendar. There's not officially a deadline. I mean, it sounds really unprofessional for me to say right now. There's not an official deadline. So we're going to keep taking the feedback as long as we can get it. But I will tell you that we have to start working on any and all edits next week. We've, as you all know, we've had to move this meeting 4 times now, I believe. We really intended to have this meeting before and to have the survey preferably open for 2 weeks so that we could finalize and collect that data. And so we're really needing this as fast as humanly possible. So if they could be done by Monday, that would be very helpful, but we're not going to close the survey. So we will continue to receive the feedback.
Great, thank you.
A little contest going on with
Yeah.
that.
Good.
Oh, also for the teachers that are still on tomorrow, we were having a power hour with Libby. So I will be sending out that link here shortly. So don't forget, guys.
Great job, team.
Great job, everybody. Thank you.
All right, one more minute and I'm going to be locking it out.
Hey, Phil, I'll follow up with you.
Yes, sir.
Y'all have a great evening, guys. Thank you.
Olga, thank you. I know you're not feeling well. Thank you for pulling through.
Yes, sir. Of course.
Thank you, Olga,
Yes, sir.
for setting this all up.
Thank you, Olga, for your help.
Oh, you're welcome. You have my cell. You could always just text me. Do you have my cell, Dr. Morales?
What was that? I don't think so, Olga.
Really? Okay, I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
You're not
It is
gonna post it live, Olga?
Monday?
You're not gonna post your cell phone live? Come on.
No. I'm sure everybody already has it.
You're kidding.
There's a good bit of information from Susan. She's asking if we can send the survey link to all teachers. Email it to them. That's a good idea.
Yes.
Okay. Susan, I think you're still on here. So the answer is yes to that. We'll go ahead and get it out to everybody.
All right, guys, it is 6:35. I'm going to go ahead now and end the session. But if you have any questions that you weren't able to ask, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us and we will get back to you. So y'all have a wonderful, oh, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I like
Phil,
my friends too.
I'll call you. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody.
Morales, thank you, Sylvia. Sylvia, thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Dr. Morales.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you,
You
ma'am.
too, Dr. Morales.
Bye-bye.